Hello, hello. I think we're live. I'm going to do a double check to make sure that we are live streaming. If you are catching us, my name is Shawn Q. I am one of the co-owners and marketing strategist at Next Step Social and Podcasting. I am going to make sure that we are live, but if you're seeing me now, go ahead and let me know in the chat that you are either hashtag team live or if you're on the rerun, that you are joining us on a rerun. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. I really appreciate the fact that you can choose any video to watch and you're choosing to watch ours. Just as a reminder, I am a marketing strategist that helps you build authority and become visible online. And that's kind of the whole premise of today's interview. I actually have a incredible guest who is going to be talking all about how do we get visible online? How do we build authority so that our customers, our clients, our audience believes that we can help them? And then how do we actually show up in their feed so much so that they actually want to work with us, that they not just like, but they start sharing our content, not just sharing our content, but they're actually becoming buyers, whether that is through booking consulting calls if you're an attorney, hiring you as a real estate agent, coming in and booking a chiropractic session, whatever service you offer. The whole purpose of it is to have a bottom line impact in your business so that you can make more money, you can step away from having to market yourself all the time, and you can do the right things to show up online. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just double check that we are solid on all platforms. Um, but I believe we are. So, without further ado, I'd love to make an introduction. So, this person needs no introduction. They are the founder and co owner of Next Step Social and Podcasting. She has been in the marketing space for what seems like ever, since the days of a MySpace, running a MySpace page for a band and really being able to understand just at the very beginning stages of this whole thing that's social media, what works and what doesn't. Not only has she been around since the MySpace days, but she has actually grown into being one of the leading industry experts on all things social, whether that is on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all of the platforms. There are specific things that work and there are things that kind of waste your time. And she knows exactly how to get an audience and move that audience to purchasing from your company. So I'm really excited to announce that we have none other than Katie Brinkley as our special guest. Everyone give a huge warm welcome to Katie Brinkley. Hey, Katie, how are you?
Hey, hey, I'm excited to be here with you live. You know me and going live, it makes me real nervous, but thanks for getting me out of my comfort zone here, Shawn.
I love it, which is really funny because you've had a podcast for years. You show up on stages across the US. You show up on other people's podcasts and shows. So it's really nice to know that you also get the before live stream nerves.
Yeah, the little
You're
the
just
stage
like us,
fright.
Katie.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and this is why I'm so glad that we're doing this. That you and I have Next Step Social and Marketing Trends now together because we're definitely yin and yang here. So yeah.
I love it. So today I really want to dive into building authority and being omnipresent because we have a really unique way of doing that. When a client comes into our world, we first propose that we launch a podcast if they don't already have a podcast. Because why? Why is it so important for people to have podcasts today? It feels like everyone has a podcast. Is it still beneficial today? Are people even listening to podcasts? And should a business start a podcast?
Well, I love that we're talking about this because, like you said, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, everyone has a podcast." Are they? Do they still work? And honestly, there's not that many shows that are still out there. Out of all the shows, there's over 4 million podcasts, and you and I were just looking at the data a few weeks ago, and there's I think only 8% of them are actually still producing content. Out of all
Wow.
those shows, it is a very small, a percentage that are actually producing new content on a regular basis. There's a lot of dead shows out there. And there's no show like yours, right? There's nobody
Mhm.
that has your opinion, that has your voice, that thinks of things the way that you do. And why not hold the microphone? That I think that In a world of AI, and I was actually just talking with our friends over at Ecamm. So the Ecamm is the sponsor of the show. We love Ecamm. Yes, yay! I was just on the Flow podcast with Katie earlier today, and we were talking about how AI is everywhere. And if you're not using AI, well, then you're getting left behind. We've incorporated AI into a lot of what we do at Next Step Social, but podcasting, there's still something to be said about a true factor when it comes to having a podcast. It helps people know you, like you, build trust with you. And man, Sora 2 is insane, right? And even video now, how much of that can you trust? Podcasting is one of the things that's going to help you build trust, unlike anything else out there with your audience.
Yeah. You said something really interesting I want to dive a little bit deeper on. Can you talk a little bit more about what you mean when you said, why aren't you holding the mic?
Oh, yeah. Having a podcast, and like you said earlier, I come from radio. So I used to be the post game reporter for the Rockies and the Broncos, here in Denver at 850 KOA. I come from radio. And if you want to listen to some bad podcasts, just go listen to the first season of Rocky Mountain Marketing. But we all start somewhere. And when I first started my show, it was for lead gen. I had no idea how it would help me really find my voice and my differentiator. I know I've always had a very different approach to social media. I just didn't realize how different it was until I started talking about it on a regular basis. It helped me craft my stage presence. It helped me become more comfortable on the microphone. I think that when you're talking regularly on a podcast, you have the opportunity to really see what it is that's your true passion, what your differentiator is.
I think diving deeper into that trust, my primary physician actually has a podcast, and
Ah,
I listen to his podcast. Why? Because it makes me feel really comfortable going to the doctors. Oh, I know him. I know his story. I know his background. I know why he studied this. I know his mission and his vision for helping his patients. He's very careful about not sharing patient information, but and being compliant. And I think a lot of times when we're working with clients, they're like, well, I have to be, I'm in this heavily regulated industry, like an attorney or a lawyer or a real estate agent, or anything in the medical field. And oftentimes, like, people just want to know what your story is. People want to know who you are. They want to know they can relate to you, that you're a human behind the coat or behind the gavel, or behind the attorney dress. So it's so key to building that trust. Um, where when people want to start a podcast, right? What are some of the things that you recommend they do before they even like press record? What should people be thinking about? What should their mindset be? And what are the things they should prepare for before pressing record?
I think that one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people have when they launch a show is they think it, okay, I'll just launch a show, check the box. Uh, but knowing the why is extremely important. Who are you talking to? Why do you have a show? What is the goal of this show? All of that is extremely important. And I know that, one of the things that we do is really get clear with clients before we launch the show as to who is this for and what is the goal of having this podcast.
Yeah. And when you're very clear about what your why is and who this is for, and getting very clear, like, I have a direct connection to my patients or my clients or my customers, I can speak directly to them. I can hold the mic, and I can not just have like a bottom line impact. Obviously, people are going to listen to your podcast. They're going to be reminded to set an appointment with you, or they're going to share your content to people who are interested in the type of work you do. Um, but there's going to be that relationship that you get to build with those people. It's a personal relationship, as opposed to, well, I'm only really talking to you when I kind of need you and I'm forced to because I have a really big problem. There's that
Yeah.
consistent cadence that you're getting in front of the right people over and over and over again with your podcast.
Well, and if you think about it, Shawn, when you're listening to a podcast, you are giving that podcast your undivided attention. Whether, it's just you in the car by yourself, even if you and your spouse in the car, and both of you are quiet, everyone's quiet, and you're spending 100% of your efforts listening to the show. That builds trust unlike anything else, and it helps you feel connected to people, it helps you feel, like you know them on a whole nother level, and it really helps build that community that's it's getting harder and harder. I mean, the bigger the internet gets, the faster the internet gets and
Yep.
AI gets, it's getting harder and harder to build community, and podcasting is a very intimate experience for not only your listener, but your community as you grow it in this digital world.
And I think that's a really good point and a question I have for you because one of the biggest maybe concerns people have is, well, everyone has a podcast. Should I really have a podcast? 100% you need to hold the mic. Only 8% of podcasts are still actively creating content. So, what a way to stand out. Number one.
Mhm.
Number two, I think another big question people have is, well, are people even listening to podcasts? Now, obviously, we produce podcasts, so we listen to them. I listen to them at the gym in the morning. I listen to them on my way to, just getting dinner. I'm listening to them as I'm getting ready for the day. You're listening to them in the car rides, picking up the kids. But are like real people listening to these podcasts?
Yeah, lots and lots and lots of people are. In fact, like I said, you and I were just talking about this report. Man, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, but we were just talking about the downloads and who's listening to these shows, and your audience is listening. Uh, it's incredible because I think a lot of people think that it's just the like the older millennials that listen to shows, but 13 to 17-year-olds is the new big podcast listener range. It's more male than female, but not by much. I mean, it's like 49 to 51%. A ton of people listen to shows. There's not podcast fatigue by any means. The only podcast fatigue that's coming is from the creator themselves. And the reason it happens is because they don't know their why. They don't have what their roadmap for the show is going to be, and they're just kind of flying by the seat of their pants. And so when you know who the show is for, what the entire season per se will be about, what the big takeaway will be, it makes it a lot easier to remain consistent with having a show.
And I think I remember part of that data, it said over 70% of your episodes are consumed. So people are listening to not just like the first 3 minutes, 5 minutes, but they're listening to 70% of your content. So if let's say you
Mhm.
have a 30-minute episode, that's like 23 minutes, a 30-minute episode. People are listening to you for 23 minutes. If it's an hour long episode, people are listening to you for 40 minutes. You have their attention. And typically it's exclusive. People can't listen to
Yep.
something listen to two separate things. You're listening to one thing, maybe you're doing something else like working out, driving, etc., but your attention is on that podcast. I
Yeah.
want you really like if you're listening to this, I really want you to pay attention to that. Imagine having the exclusive attention of your ideal clients, of your audience, of your customers. And then not only that, but they're sharing your content. I think something you kind of alluded to, Katie, is not only just knowing your why, but also knowing the strategy behind the podcast. What's going to go into the first season, and how is that? How is episode 1 and episode 4 and episode 7? I feel like I'm talking about Star Wars as a Star Wars fan, but how are these episodes going to lead to actual customers? Can you talk a little bit about kind of the strategy behind how to actually convert with a podcast?
Yeah, and well, this is one of the things that we do with our VIP days where we sit down and really build out the entire 6, 12, 18-month marketing strategy and where a podcast, if it does fit in, what's the goal for each season? What's the goal for each episode? And one of our newer clients, we launched their show to great new downloads. She's just been rocking it. And instead of just the first few episodes were to subscribe to the podcast, share with a friend. Now we're working into the lead magnet phase. Hey, we have this free download. Go here and get it. Now that we have the people, and moving people through the customer journey. I mean, I don't want to take all the credit for it. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the different 5 levels of awareness that we do for some of our guests. So,
Yeah, so when we're looking at every single episode, it has to have an intention of how is this moving people through the journey of being completely unaware to being fully aware. And I know we have a live stream on this topic. So if you're looking for that, a kind of a deeper dive on that, you can go ahead and listen to that episode. We'll put it in the description. But essentially, there's 5 levels of awareness somebody goes through from being a complete stranger to a buyer of yours. The first is being completely unaware of you. They don't even know you exist as an option in the market. So, how can we create content that gets shared from listeners to new audience members? How can we create content that's going to be widely distributed on social media so new people, as they're scrolling through their feed, come across your content and say, "Oh, I didn't even know you existed in my city." How do we generate that awareness? In that first phase of unawareness, they become aware not only that you exist, but that they have a problem, that there's something that is creating pain in their life. There's something that they want that they can't have or they're not experiencing. And now they become aware of that pain. Level 2 of this 5 levels of awareness is problem aware. So now they're aware they have pain. The problem aware folks are now aware of what the problem is that's causing that pain. So, for example, if you're a chiropractor, as one of our clients is, they help them understand it's not just the fact that you're like your back is hurting, but the root problem is a little bit deeper. And here's why that pain is causing you. Here's some of the reasons why that might happen. So now what you're doing is you're getting someone to a point of, oh, I know I have pain and I know what the real problem is. By answering and giving clarity on this, you become an authority. Because here's the
Mhm.
truth, if you can describe somebody's problem better than they can, they'll automatically believe in you as a solution. And that's where phase 3 is, or level 3 of the awareness levels are, is solution aware. So now they know what their problem is and they know that the solution is to go get a chiropractic session or to go get root canal or whatever the deeper issue is. They know what the deep solution is to not just solve their pain but solve the real problem. The fourth
Yeah.
layer is where they become program or product aware. And that's where not only are they aware they have pain, they know where that pain's coming from, they know what the solution is, but they know you can provide that solution. And this is where they become aware that you have a deal going that every single Friday they can get 20% off, or if they're, like the way you solve the problem is different from everyone else. For example, our chiropractics client, they don't just do chiropractic sessions. They're not there to just break and crack your bones. They're there to do gentle, sensoric, deep spinal work with you. And it's a very unique approach. So now, somebody who's listening to your podcast, they've gone through the process of being aware of the pain, the problem, the solution, and your specific way of providing that solution. And then the last layer is most aware. And that's where they're like, I know exactly what to do now because I know I can book a call. I know I can go to the website. I know I can claim this offer or this discount. And so they're most aware of how to take action to solve their pain, their problem, get the solution, etc. So when we're crafting the strategy around our podcast, typically what we're doing is we're identifying where is the gap. Is your audience unaware or is your audience to the point of solution aware? And we do that through a series of analytical tools of research, and we do kind of our own internal process. But we identify the gaps, and then our goal with the podcast is to fill those gaps. So you're not just creating content, but you're creating content with purpose and with intentionality. And the great thing about those 5 levels of awareness is level 1 to level 2 is a very specific call to action, whereas level 2 to level 3 is a different call to action. So we're being very strategic about how to fill those gaps. And that's a little bit of the strategy. And I think as a listener, if you're listening to this, recognizing it's not just creating content, but it's being very intentional about how is that content going to convert to more people coming in, more people buying from you, more people doing the thing you want them to do.
More people booking you for stages, how are you and that's what a lot of our clients, they didn't even think was possible. It was by having this show and having this opportunity. One of our clients has written a book now. They're a regular speaker on the news whenever something pops up, that's in their field. So I think that as you have your show, the people that are listening, they're talking about you when you're not in the room, which is one of the best things that can happen as a business owner.
And I think that's super key. So that's all about how we are building authority, not just with your audience, obviously, and with your customers and clients, but also for yourself and your personal brand so that you
Mhm.
have this tool and this asset to leverage for books, speaking engagements, etc. So we've really dived into the authority side, of our formula as a company. What we do is we help you build authority through podcasts, but then we also help you become omnipresent, and that's through social media and distributing the podcast, marketing the podcast on social. And that's really where you shine, Katie. Tell us a little bit more about how we can leverage social media to get more listeners for the podcast, and to show up in people's feed.
Well, I think that one of the best compliments that we get as an agency is, man, people tell me that they see me everywhere, and they're not really doing any work. Our clients are still going out there and doing their day job, but it looks like they're everywhere on social media, having podcasts, on YouTube, doing all these things, but really it's very minimal effort from our clients, right? Because we're in the background doing all the heavy lifting, creating all the social content, creating the short form video, creating, the newsletters, the long, thought leadership, the blogs, all of that, which again, it makes it look like you're doing everything. You're everywhere, but really, I mean, I get it. I'm a business owner too. I don't have time to sit down and create a ton of social media content for myself. I'm trying to run and grow a business, but I know how important social media and digital marketing is to help grow that business.
And I think that's a great question for you, listener, to consider is what if you can create one piece of content, a podcast episode, and then hand it off and you start showing up everywhere, right? That one podcast episode becomes a LinkedIn article, a blog, a YouTube video, reels, TikTok videos, Facebook
Lead
posts,
magnets. Yeah.
lead magnets, books. You just created one piece of content in 20 minutes, and now people are saying, "Oh my God, I see you everywhere." And we've heard that very like from almost every one of our clients, is they come back to us and they say, "People are telling me I'm everywhere, and like they see me everywhere, and it's pretty awesome." Now,
Yeah.
obviously, being visible is awesome. You kind of get a little bit of that local celebrity sense of like, oh wow, I'm showing up everywhere. But there's a real bottom line impact to social media because there are people who are ready to buy from you, but they don't know you exist. So that's really where we help you become kind of known in your area or better known. You clarify what your offer is. What are some things people should know when it comes to social media? And we'll end with this. What are some things people need to know when it comes to social media and playing well on the platforms and playing not well on the platforms?
Well, before I answer that, I do really quickly wanna say, how one of our clients was able to launch an entire second division of their business, a Spanish speaking division, has an entire podcast, entire social media, entire website, everything. But all they're doing is still that one English podcast, but we've been able to, you know, take all of that, and now they have an entire second division, but it's not taking a ton of time. I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's gonna take me, ec 4 hours a week to have this show." Her show's 10 to 15-minute episodes, and it all depends on what your listener wants, what, the basis of your show is, but when you have that one piece of content, it's going to help drive the machine, and it's just really exciting to see it happen for clients. Like you, as a team, we get really excited and celebrate our client wins, as if they were our own. It's for me, it's nothing better than seeing a client's company grow because of the organic side of marketing, which is really helping drive and grow their community.
Yeah, I love that. So essentially, you're able to not only listen, if you're listening to this, not only are you able to have an English podcast, but with all of the tools available that can now easily be translated to other languages and potentially open up new markets for you. And you're still spending 10, 15 minutes recording one episode, which is pretty phenomenal. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna come back to the initial question,
Yes.
which was
Yeah,
how
sorry.
can people play well on social media, and how can they not play? Like, where do we see a lot of people making those mistakes?
One of the biggest mistakes that I see is the not knowing what the why is. Why are you here? Why should they care? Why are you and I have talked about this a lot, Donald Miller and the hero's journey, and we take who is our ideal client and put them into every single post. Why should this person care? And I think it's really easy to come into social media and just use it as a checking of the box. Like, all right, done. I posted on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn, and it's all the exact same thing. Go make me millions of dollars. But okay, why? Why should they care? Because if you have good content that people care about, it's going to stop their scroll. They're going to engage, they're going to want to work with you, they're going to want to sign up, and they're going to want to follow you, all of the things when it's good content, not just generic checking of the box, more white noise.
Yeah, so good. And I think something to recognize is that, there are certain ways that you can play on Facebook or on LinkedIn or on TikTok that are very unique to those platforms. So
Yep,
something that works on Facebook won't work on LinkedIn. So if you're just kind of
exactly.
posting the same thing all over, uh, you know, it might work a little bit on this platform, but it's not going to work on the other platform, and you're not going to know why. So it's really
Yep.
being able to understand how do these platforms, really play with our content? How do they determine what's good content versus bad content? What does the audience on those platforms? Because somebody going on LinkedIn is a very different behavior, online behavior, than somebody going on TikTok. They're
1,000,000
performing
percent.
very differently. They're doing different things. And I'll add to this to close us out. One of the biggest mistakes I see is a lot of corporate jargon. So you're
Oh,
posting because you're posting as a business and you feel like I got to sound really corporate and professional. And there are times where that's true. You should sound professional when you're speaking in front of a client or a customer. But when it's social media, the goal is to be social. It's to create a sense of community and relationship. And so when you're creating content on social, your job is to educate, but also to entertain. And so the goal is how do we get people to stop the scroll and say, "Oh, I really like this person." Not that
yeah.
I can just trust this person, which is part of it. That's where professionalism comes in. But like I want to have lunch with them. I like them. They're fun. They're exciting to do business with. They're exciting to work with. So if you're really corporate, let's tone the corporate professionalism down and just have a lot of fun with it. The more fun you have on social media, the more likely you are to win on the platform. Katie, I know you have to go, so I'm going to let you go, but this was so helpful. You've alluded to something we do, which is our strategic intensives. These are VIP
Yeah.
days with clients where we spend, anywhere from 2 to 8 hours with a client, diving really deep into their business and creating a strategic playbook. How can people learn more about, if they're interested in, yeah, I want to know how a podcast or social media can really work for my business to generate leads, create awareness, have a bottom line impact. What's their next step?
Yeah, and whether you have a current podcast and it's not generating leads for you, we can absolutely do one of these strategic intensives for you as well. Like it's not just for new shows, but I do think more people need to be holding the microphone. That's what's going to be your differentiator. That's what's going to humanize your brand. If you're a business owner, a CEO, it's time to step into the spotlight. It's time for you to be the spokesperson for your company. And would love to do a strategic intensive with you. You can see all of that at our website at yournextstep.agency.
All right. Go to yournextstep.agency and you'll be able to reach out and we'll do a strategic incentive with you. Katie, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. What's so again, my name is Shawn Q. I'm one of the marketing strategists here at Next Step Social and Podcasting. If you're interested in taking that next step and getting a strategic incentive where we dive deep into your business, not just your podcast or your social media, but your entire marketing, and we identify where the gaps are and we show you exactly how to fix them, then go ahead and go to yournextstep.agency and we'll see you on a strategic incentive. My name is Shawn Q, and I'll see you in the next stream. Bye, everybody.